be a difficult day for the club, if you could sum up your emotions.
Yeah, I think obviously incredibly disappointing. I felt as though if we did our side of the bargain today, I felt we would get a result somewhere that went in our favour, and I think probably most people would have expected something to have happened. It felt like it was very quiet out and about. You look at these last day moments or last day goals, and it didn't seem like there was anything really going on out there. So congratulations to the teams that held their nerve, that needed to win or needed to get a result, because I'm sure when they heard our result coming in, or our goal, that put added pressure on those teams. So pleased with the performance. I thought I've got to say that the atmosphere in the stadium was probably the best I've ever heard before a game. It was absolutely electric, and the fans, as we knew they would more than play their part, and the players actually delivered today. I thought they delivered a really good performance. I think we played very well against the Norwich side, but when you know that that's not quite enough, of course there's a feeling of dejection in there. But sometimes when you put a performance like that in because you have to and you need to, I think what really good teams do, they do it when they don't need to. They show that same level of attitude when they don't need to. And I think there's going to be some games that, of course, the team and the club will look back on and say, maybe we just needed to show that a little bit earlier in the season. But yeah, I don't think it's a time to point fingers. It's not the time to look for blame. I'm disappointed that the 8 games, whilst I think there's been some positives, I think 3 home wins out of 4, and the last 4 games I think we've been really good in terms of a points tally overall, 2 points a game, but it's not been enough. So yeah, really disappointed.
How difficult has your task been, given the circumstances around your appointment? Not difficult in that sense. I think difficult in terms of many different things. I think they're probably I think on the whole, the majority of the players in there have given everything they've got in terms of their energy and effort day to day. I think there's definitely moments where I think as a group they could do more. And I think you always look back at that. But again, that's not really for the now. But I think that's a little disappointment at times. But yeah, I think it's been a tough period in some ways. I think for 8 games, when you're an interim manager, sometimes you haven't quite got that same level of authority to do things. In some ways, you're trying to tread carefully a little bit. But yeah, that's the challenge when we came in. I don't think anyone could foresee the situation arising for Birmingham, and I think you can look back at some of the moments in the season. And of course, I'm sure that some moments people will be maybe critical of, but I think there's also some moments where I don't think anyone could have really foreseen, and difficult situations. So with Tony, so yeah, I mean, we tried to make the best of it. I knew the risk when I came in. I knew what may lay on my shoulders. I knew that there was every chance that for 8 games I could end up being the person in this chair with a relegation. But that's why I took it, because I wanted to try and help the club. I wanted to try and do my bit, and I'm really disappointed it hasn't quite been enough. It has been a season of a lot of managerial change here. How damaging do you think that's been for the season and for how things have ended up?
Yeah, look, I mean, again, for me, it's not for me to sort of answer why or ask why, and I can only really judge it on 8 games. But I think, of course, when you see successful clubs and teams being successful, often there's an element of continuity there. There's an element of consistency there. But yeah, that's, like I said, I can only judge it on the successful cultures I've been part of before. I think certainly 1 or 2 elements been missing here, and I think that probably then comes out over a period of time. So disappointing. I'm sure 6. You never want 6 different voices over the course of a season, but that's what we've had for different reasons, and I hope my voice might be the one that could make the difference. And sadly, I haven't quite made as much difference as I'd like to have done.
A big summer ahead, I guess, for this club, and what next for you as well?
Yeah, look, I think it's very easy to say, but I do believe that once the dust settles and people, feel, I think that at the moment, obviously, there's going to be a lot of disappointment. There's going to be some sad
blue noses out there because they've done everything for their club over a long period of time, and the history of this club's incredible, and certainly they don't want to be playing in League One. But I do think the owners are really good people. I think the owners have got exciting plans for the club moving forward. I think if we can match that with a real foundation on the pitch, and I think that's really, really important. I believe that the club are destined for some really exciting times if they can get it right, because I don't think there's many clubs in a position that they're in with desire. You see Tom here today, it'd be very easy as an owner to maybe think, just stay away just in case. But actually, he's put himself out there and in the firing line. I think that's because they really care. So yeah, I think it's exciting. I wish the club all the best. For me, from a personal perspective, disappointment, of course. But I think sometimes you have to try and learn from moments. You have to learn from situations, and wherever my next opportunity will be, I'll find out at some point. But that's probably the furthest thought away from my mind at this moment in time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Dan, do you have any to add?
Gary, the journey back probably started full time about an hour ago. You're obviously leaving. The players now need some clarity, don't they, about who's in charge and what's happening. Contracts up. There's a lot of questions need to be answered.
Well, look, I'm sure over the next period of weeks, the club have got a lot of things that they're going to need to do in order to be ready for next season. I think you clearly can't wait too long in terms of those weeks of planning. And they're going to have to make some big decisions, I'm sure, on players' futures, on how they want the squad to look for next season. But again, those are things that every club will have to do depending on where they're at. That's just a normal summer, whether you're in a different division. You still want the best possible players available. You still want to sign players that you perhaps feel you can't sign normally to get you up. I think there's some players there that it'd be great if they had the responsibility to say, what, I'm going to stay to get this football club back in the Championship. And I think sometimes it's easy for people to look at the exit door and look for an easy way out, but maybe sometimes that's something that players need to look at. And then, of course, the club, hopefully the rest of it takes care of itself. Like I said before, hopefully Tony comes back as a manager to try and get the club back into the Championship, because there's going to be a great opportunity if they make the right steps and do it the right way, I believe.
Strange atmosphere amongst the fans at the end, because usually when a side goes down, there's anger, there's recrimination, but actually there wasn't that today. It was just like almost a bit numb, a bit empty, probably because of the good signs that have happened away from the pitch.
And also I think that if the fans see a performance out there full of heart and desire, and I think they appreciate that come what may, and I think that was really the message that most people said to me. We just want the team to go out there and do everything they can, and like I said, sometimes that's easier in the last day when you've got to do it. Where that's quite difficult sometimes is on a Wednesday night in November somewhere, where the weather's not quite so nice and you've got to go and do all the hard yards when it doesn't feel like it matters as much, and I think that's probably why the team's in the position they're in. But I thought the fans were amazing today, and I said that to the players after. I know it's hard sometimes to go out there and try and clap the fans when you feel a bit embarrassed, you feel a bit like disappointed, but I said if we got the opportunity, that's the very, very least we should be doing.
And maybe this was many years in the making, because this is what, third, fourth, fifth time they've been involved in a last day shootout. You spin the roulette wheel enough times.
Yeah,
go wrong, isn't it?
Well, I think as a club you have to learn from that, of course, but it's always difficult when different ownership groups have been in that position, so it's not necessarily the same people that have been in that position for a long time. But yeah, you're not gonna get a Paul Caddis come to your rescue every time, are you? So I think the disappointment today is we didn't need that moment, but we didn't get that moment anywhere else, and that's disappointing. But that's what happens when you leave it down to others to fail rather than you to succeed. So that's the disappointing bit, I think. But like I said, pleased with the performance, pleased with certain elements, but over 46 games, you have to look at where the team are at.
Thank you, Gary.
Alex?
Gary, do you think this is it for you and Blues, or further down the line is a new chapter?
Well, look, that was a situation originally. It was never anything else. It was, can you come in for 8 games and can you come and try and save us? Like I said many times before, and this is not just me saying it now. Most people who I spoke to said why would you do that? Why would you go in for 8 games, and why would you put yourself in that position when, I didn't need to, but it just felt the right thing to do. I can't really explain it. I think the connection I had with the club when I was first here, it's hard to lose that. You know, you can feel that with different clubs, but I think certainly Birmingham City Football Club has been one that when I left, it always felt like there might be an opportunity to come back, and that's not from a melancholy perspective. That's from it felt like unfinished business. I'm disappointed with the finished business was relegation. Of course, I didn't want that, and I didn't expect that. But I wanted to put myself in that position, if you like, and if it's me that has to stand there now, so be it. But I'm disappointed for the fans. I'm disappointed we couldn't quite do enough over the period to stay in the division.
Can you ask what your debrief with the board will look like, Gary, in terms of what your recommendation? A lot of people are calling for like a complete reset. There's obviously I think 14 players out of contract. What will your words be? Do you think the club needs a reset?
I think there's going to be an inevitable reset, of course, just because of the amount of players that are out of contract, and the turnover dropping down a division, I think, always creates, and like I said, I think the first thing you want to do is you want to try and get some of those players to feel that responsibility of staying, who are clearly going to be very, very good players in the division below, and try and get the team back in the division. I think the lessons for me are, if you want to be a really, really good team, I think every day you have to do the right things. If you want to be a top athlete, every day you have to put the right amount of dedication and discipline into that. And I think that that's been short a few times. I think certainly in the 8 games I've been here. But like I said, it's not the time to. I think there's a clear direction of where the club needs to go. I think there's clear direction of how it needs to get there. But you got to go and do it, haven't you? And you've got to go and lay those foundations for a good team with talented players that work hard. And I think that's, you look at Norwich, and speaking to their guys about Sarah, he's a player that's going to be worth a lot of money, and he's got talent. But do you know what? Boy, he runs and he works for his team. So yeah.
When you said earlier, Gary, about one or two elements missing, is that what you mean? That perhaps sometimes that dedication?
No, I don't. Look, I think sometimes over a long period of time, you don't have good players that do everything right and get relegated. I think there's always areas that maybe you fell short in different positions or different moments or different parts of the team. And like I said before, I don't think that's for me to answer. I don't think that's for me to give a definitive answer to. I've spoke to the group in there and I've told them what my thoughts are. I think there's some incredible guys in there. I think people who really, really have put their heart on their sleeve, the likes of John Ruddy, the likes of Dukey, Gary Gardner, not played hardly a minute. You know what? Said to me yesterday, I'm not fit, but if you want me out there, I'll do everything I can to get out there. And sometimes that attitude, you need to balance that attitude with quality and with talent. And I think that they're a really good example of that. But yeah, look, I can only judge it on my games. I have to look at myself and say, what games could we have done more in certain games? And I think the answer will always be yes. And that's my accountability and that's a responsibility that I will always have.
Gary, what's the next kind of week look for you? Is your involvement completely over today, or is there a bit of a gradual exit for you?
Well, as far as I'm aware, my involvement's over for now. And if the club want my opinion on some of the things over the 8 weeks, of course I'll try and help them with that. Spoke about that before, but that's I'm sure they've got enough people with enough experience there to mull over and work out what they need to do next. I'm sure there'll be a period of just quiet and reflection, and then I'm sure, like most summers, a period of action, trying to build back to be in a great position. Like I said to you before, I think it's an incredibly exciting time for the football club. I know it's a really disappointing day today, and it feels a little bit like the club's probably gone to ground zero for the first time in that period. But I believe if we get it right on the pitch, I think off the pitch it's really exciting as well. So yeah. Difficult moment, but yeah, hopefully they'll make it.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Cheers.